we stop there with the Seahawks and we move over here to the Mariners and then talk about win streak. It's not what happened in Seattle, unless you can a 2-gamer, which in baseball, especially with how many games they play. Anyway, we go over here. It was a homestand filled with the Los Angeles teams, and I say Los Angeles in air quotes because obviously, as I've talked about for years when we do Circling Seattle Sports on Converge, the Angels don't particularly play in Los Angeles. Regardless, the Angels took game one of this series, a September 11th win for the Angels, 5-8 loss for the Mariners in extra innings. Our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez, who was in this photo of the game by our photographer Sage Zipeto, 4 hits, 2 runs and 2 RBIs. His 2-run homer in the 10th inning of this game tied it up, but it wasn't enough as the Angels would kind of pile on there in the 11th, and the Mariners were unable to respond. With that home run, Julio became the 44th player in Major League Baseball history to join the 30-30 club, and joined 3 other players who did so under the age of 22. Well, at or under the age of 22. So that was nice to see that history, but even after the game, Julio didn't really want to talk about it. I was really upset that the team wasn't able to get the win there. But he was much happier to talk about it. To talk more so about the team's win after the fact that they got their next game, September 12th versus the Angels, an 8-0 win, a shutout victory. You can see Julio's expression there in that photo by Anthony May. 2 players of the game in this 8-0 win: third baseman Eugenio Suarez, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and a walk, including a solo homer for the Mariners third baseman, and starting pitcher Bryan Woo. Bryan Woo, so much can be said about the rookie pitchers for this Mariners organization, whether it's him or Bryce Miller coming in and taking the starting rotation roles, with Robbie Ray being down for the season, with Marco Gonzalez being out for the season. 2 guys who, no matter how you feel about them, are inning eaters. And Wu and Miller have been able to do an excellent job, and especially in the series. We'll get to Miller's start later on, as he was our player of the game for the day that he started. But Wu, 5 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, and 8 strikeouts. It was arguably one of the better games he had pitched statistically. And looking at some of the deeper numbers, whether it's the pitches and the whiffs and all that, so it was excellent to see that. That was really satisfying. So the Mariners, that win set up the rubber match, and they would take that one on September 13th, a 3-2 win, very tight one. Our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Julio, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI, and 1 walk. And our photo of the game here, Julio and starting pitcher Luis Castillo. La Piedra had an excellent game. Kind of tough, got some things, but largely had a great game. Just not nearly enough run support. They would get that later to get the win. And Julio, two of the Mariners' best players in that one photo right there, kind of messing around with each other. So they got the rubber match. They win the series there. They would get a day off before they hosted the LA Dodgers, one of the best teams in all of baseball. And the Mariners, unfortunately, I know I joked about it the last few weeks with the broom. The broom is here in the room. I don't mean to rhyme, but kind of sad. We don't typically do that when the Mariners get swept. September 15th versus the Dodgers, a 3-6 loss. Our player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI, a solo homer. Not a lot of offense going on early, as the Dodgers had young starting pitcher Bobby Miller out there. Bobby Miller is a hell of a pitcher. Great fastball, hits 100. Big pitcher, and has a solid arsenal of off-speed pitches as well. He dueled off against George Kirby, and Kirby, he had an all right game, but ultimately the Mariners just didn't do enough on offense to support that and keep this going. And then the bullpen could only do so much later on. They kind of got the Dodgers pulled away late. You can see our photo of the game here. Teoscar Hernandez in the final at-bat of the game kind of walks off, wondering what went wrong with this game. Game 2, unfortunately, the photo of the game is going to look similar. A 2-6 loss. Our player of the game, right-handed pitcher Bryce Miller, through his tenure, 5 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, and 4 Ks. I mean, again, in September here, you've got Wu and Miller contributing valuable innings for the Mariners, and at least in these games, not getting nearly enough to any run support. the Dodgers would be able to pull away late with that one. In extra innings, and it just wouldn't matter enough. Wait, was this extra innings? I don't think so. The Dodgers pulled away is what mattered. And ultimately, they would lose this series here. And you think, oh, well, in that win as well, the Dodgers actually clinched the National League West division for the 10th time in the past 11 seasons. So the next day, they wheeled out their quote-unquote hangover lineup as they rested some guys like Freeman. This was an extra innings. Yeah. Oh, gosh, the Dodgers scored 5 runs in the 11th. Yeah. So photo of the game here, Julio Rodriguez walking off after the last plate appearance, just, obviously not happy about it. So anyway, the Mariners, you'd think, with Logan Gilbert on the mound, who hadn't lost in quite some time, and playing the hangover lineup, quote unquote, you think, okay, they should be able to salvage this game, take a win. And what's frustrating about those first 2 losses of the series is that both the Rangers and Astros had lost their respective games as well. So you had chances to gain ground, and you just kind of spat on them. They spat on this as well, as they lost 1-6 in the final game of the series at homestand. And the photo of the game is a little more positive, as the Mariners celebrated Hispanic Heritage Day, and both players from the Mariners and the Dodgers met behind home plate to take this photo pregame with their native flags. This one was just incredible. I mean, in the second inning, the Mariners did get a run. They were creating traffic for those first few innings, and then there was just nothing. The Dodgers hammered Logan Gilbert from the start of this game. And it was tough because if you look at the pitch locations of where the Astros, pardon me, it's a sin to call Dodgers Astros, where the pitches to these Dodger players were in regards to where their big hits came from, they weren't exactly bad pitches. The Dodgers got good one on them. And this is the Dodgers quote unquote hangover lineup. So just a really, really frustrating effort. And it was really odd to see the last few innings of this, when most of the game after those first 2 innings was just the energy wasn't there, whether it was on the field for the Mariners or in the stands. And this was a sellout. There was a sellout crowd of 45,000 plus. And it's just lifeless. I mean, the problem is everybody blamed the pitching this weekend, which I don't find correct. In the third game where Gilbert got hammered early on, sure, fine, whatever. But again, one run isn't going to beat anybody most of the time, right? Those first 2 games, Kirby didn't necessarily struggle, but that wasn't the main issue. The Mariners, we went into extra innings, and it just wasn't. They weren't doing enough. They were generating traffic in games 1 and 2, yes, but they didn't get. Scott Service always talks about it being the timely hit, the big hit to kind of. No, that's stupid. I'm going to look up George Kirby's game log, and it's telling me George Kirby is a great fit for the San Francisco Giants. Shut up. This game, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 runs, 4 of them earned, a homer, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Yeesh. It ultimately didn't look good. But the pitches weren't bad either in this one. Anyway, offensively, 1 run in the 4th, 2 in the 6th, and then that's not able to do. Yeah, they ended up falling off. Still not enough. Homer. Yeah, still not enough. It's just not enough. Getting traffic, not being able to push them over. The big stat that I looked at the end of this series, immediately after the Mariners got swept, was the Mariners went 4 for 33 with runners in scoring position this series. That's just unacceptable. That is really, really unacceptable. And they had that issue on Monday against the Angels, but then in the next 2 games, they were much better. They had a lot of runs with 2 outs, which was funny. So it's just the same sort of thing that we were looking at in the first half of the season, where they had generated traffic. They just weren't able to push it through. A lot of chasing. So it's not great. It's not great. Even the game 2, when it was Miller versus Kershaw didn't start the game out very well. In the first 2 innings, the control really wasn't there. And even then, with the control not being there, the Mariners were chasing at pitches. I understand it. He's got the curve ball and the slider, but the control aspect of it, ah, yeah, it's frustrating. And this is obviously a time that you got to be locked in. You got to be focused. They saged the clubhouse on Tuesday. That was all great and dandy and woohoo. But I might need to sage the whole stadium after something like that. You get swept in that fashion. So Annie Huzit, our player of the week, pardon me. Shortstop JP Crawford. JP, 6 hits, 1 run, 4 extra base hits, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, a 273 batting average, a 333 on base percentage, a 455 slugging percentage, and a 788 OPS. We have a few other things relating to the Mariners from the past week. On the 11th, we got a Tom Murphy update from general manager Justin Hollander. He has a small fracture in his thumb, and at that point, he had been shut down from baseball activity for the past 10 days. This was on the 11th. He said this. The thumb is currently in a splint, and the Mariners will have to make a decision on the 22nd of this month, which is in 4 days by the time this comes out, whether or not they're going to be able to bring him back and get him back into back onto the roster, or if they're going to shut him down. In other team-related news, the same day on the 11th, Jared Kelenic had been reinstated from the 10-day injured list, and as a corresponding move, what just happened with the lights? Oh, that bulb went out. That's great. As a corresponding move, outfielder Cade Marlowe was optioned down to AAA Tacoma. On the 12th, right-handed pitcher Luke Weaver was claimed off waivers from the New York Yankees. And the teams, by the New York Yankees, not from, pardon me. Also, as a corresponding move, and Hollander mentioned this on the 11th, but the actual roster move took place on the 12th. Catcher Luis Torrens was selected from AAA Tacoma, and the team placed catcher Brian O'Keefe on the paternity list. So since then, O'Keefe has been reinstated from the paternity list and sent down to AAA Tacoma. At this time, the Mariners sit at an 81-68 record. They are third in the American League West. They're 2.5 games back from the top of the division, 1 game out of a wild card spot at this time. I talked about it. The Astros and Rangers have been losing games, but the Blue Jays have not. So the Mariners find themselves out of a playoff spot, and they really need to kick things into high gear. It starts with a 3-game set on the road in Oakland at the Coliseum with the first 2 games, 18th and 19th of this month, being 6:40 p.m. Pacific time first pitches, and then game 3 of the series, the getaway game, is a 12:37 p.m. first pitch on September 20th. As at this current point in time, being where they're at, having been swept, you probably need to sweep the Athletics, and that's been shown to be no easy feat, whether it be by the Mariners or some of the series that the Athletics have played throughout the course of their season. After that 3-game set against the Athletics, the Mariners will travel down to Texas to play another American League West rival in the Texas Rangers, a team they really have struggled against this year. And in 6 games played head-to-head, they've only won 1 of them. So first pitch on the 22nd of this game is a 5:05 p.m. first pitch. And then September 23rd at the Rangers, a 4:05, leading us to a September 24th game against the Rangers, an 11:35 a.m. first pitch. This begins a really big stretch for the Mariners against both the Rangers and the Astros, where they'll need to be at their very best, whether that be focused, locked in, whatever the hell you may have it be. We're in the final 13 games of the season at this current point in time. But by then, it's the final 10 games, and 7 of those last 10 games of the year are against the Texas Rangers. This very well, any playoff hope, any division title hope could come down to whether or not the Mariners are able to do well against the Rangers, let alone Houston. So it's a really, really big week. And it's going to get wild. It's going to get really wild. We're going to do our very best to stay on top of all of it. It's really big. Every game in September has been really big, and the Mariners have really fallen flat on their face so far in the month of September. So